Well, the last most important part, reformulating PF. To show how I would use the just offered proposal to reformulate the principle of uniformity or induction, I will consider in some detail PF, the principle that the future will resemble the past. In my suggestion, if my suggestion is correct, then it must be possible to turn this principle into an analytic, conceptual truth constituting our only possibilities of conceiving and experiencing the world. I understand an analytic conceptual thought content to be simply one whose truth depends only on the combination of its semantic constituents. Its truth is an ampliity of our knowledge in opposition to synthetic propositions and is such that its denial implies a contradiction of inconsistency. To show how the aforementioned suggestion could be applied to reformulating the principles of uniformity or induction, it is necessary to reformulate PF. If my general thesis is correct, then it must be possible to turn this principle into an analytic conceptual truth, constituting a way of conceiving and experiencing the world. Here is a first attempt to reformulate PF in a clearly analytic form. PF asterisk. The future must have some resemblance to its past. Unlike PF, PF asterisk can easily be accepted as expressing an analytic conceptual truth. For PF asterisk can be clearly seen as satisfying the above characterization of analyticity. Certainly, it belongs to the concept of future that it is the future of its own past. It cannot be the future of another past belonging to some alien world. If a future had nothing to do with its past, we could not even recognize it as being the future of its own past, because it would be the future of anything, what seems incoherent. In still clearer words, the future of our actual world W as FW can only be the future of the past of W that is PW. It cannot be the future of infinitely many possible worlds like W1, W2, W3, and so on, that have as their past, respectively, PW1, PW2, PW3, and so on. Thus, it is necessary that there must be something that identifies FW as being the future of PW, and this something can only be some degree of resemblance in the transition. Against this proposal, we can try to illustrate by means of examples the possibility of complete changes in the world, only to see that we will always be unsuccessful. Suppose we try to imagine a future totally different from its past, a complete transformation of the world, as described in the book of Revelations. It's harder to imagine changes more dramatic than those described by St. John, since he intends to describe the end of the world as we know it. Here is the biblical passage describing the locust sent by the fifth angel. In appearance, the locusts were like horses equipped for battle, and on their heads were what looked like golden crowns. Their faces were like human faces, and their hair like human's hair. They had teeth like lions' teeth, and they breastplates like iron. The sound of their wings was like the noise of horses and chariots rushing to battle. They had tails like scorpions, with stings in them, and in their stings lay their power to plague mankind for 5 months. At first glance, these changes are formidable. Nonetheless, there is nothing in this report that puts PF asterisk in risk. In fact, closer reflection on the example demonstrates that even PF isn't seriously challenged. Although the biblical locusts are indeed very strange creatures, they are described as combinations of things already familiar to us. These things are horses, women, hares, men, heads, teeth, scorpions, tails with stings, human faces, and so on. Both internally and externally, they include a vast quantity of familiar diachronic associations, like the causal relationship between the noise produced and the movement of wings, or the sting of the scorpion and the effects of its poison on humans. In fact, were it not for these uniformities, the apocalypse, as described by St. John, would not be conceivable, understandable, and able to be subjected to any linguistic description. The future, at least in proportion to its greater proximity to the present, must maintain sufficient similarity to its past to allow an application of inductive procedures to recognize continuity of the same world we know today. Now, one could object that maybe it is possible that at some time in a remote future we could find a dissimilarity so great between the future and our past that it invalidates any of our reasonable applicable inductive procedures, a remote future that would be radically different from its past. Indeed, it seems conceivable that a continuous sequence of small changes could, in the course of a very long period of time, lead to something, if not completely different, at least extremely different. Nevertheless, this would not discredit PF asterisk because its formulation is too weak, requiring only that some similarity must remain. However, it also seems that this weakness of PF asterisk, even if not robbing it from its analytic conceptual character, exposes PF asterisk to charges of disproportionate poverty as a way to assure the reliability of its inductive projections. However, precisely this weakness of PF asterisks suggests a way to improve it. It leads us to see that the closer we get to the point of juncture between the future and the past, the greater must be the similarity between future and past both becoming identical at their limit, which is the present. The present, forgot the relativity theory, the present in a coordinate system and another present will be another system of coordinators, initial system of coordinators. We can approximate this issue by remembering the Aristotelic analysis of change as always assuming the permanence of something that remains identical in a continuous way without gain or losses. In other words, the intuitive idea is that every change must occur on some basis of permanence. This leads us to create another variant of PF, namely the principle according to which, in a process of change, the amount of permanence must be inversely proportional to the period of time in which this change occurs. This will be for the next part.